I honestly believe women's soccer has this, we're on this upward trajectory, but it's starting its meteoric rise, and it's going to just take off in a way that it never has had an opportunity to.
My guest today is a bona fide US soccer legend, a woman who's done it all, so much so that her Wikipedia page has her listed as defender, midfielder and forward. And as someone who can barely do one thing well, I've got to say, having three expertise is limited is truly mind-bending. A two-time World Cup winner, 2 Olympic gold medals, the best Brandi since Carlisle, a fearless pathfinder for the women's game, who's now turned a hand to ownership as co-founder of the NWSL's newest team, Bay FC. Welcome to Direct from Down Under, presented by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Welcome to the mighty Brandi Chastain.
What's up, Raj? So happy to be joining you on the here. Cheers.
Cheers. We are in truly remarkable times for women's football, as we will discuss. Times of wonder, times of challenge. We're having this conversation in the midst of the World Cup in Australia and New Zealand, a World Cup that's by far the most competitive in the history of the game. It's already broken all kinds of records in terms of attendance, the television ratings here in the United States, that despite the wonky kickoff times for the East Coast American viewer. What's been your biggest takeaway from it all so far?
Rising stars, whether they're, young teenagers or seasoned players, what I would call veterans that have not had an opportunity to participate in a World Cup before, whether that be because their federation were not funding, were not supporting women's football. These are players who have been around and they've been playing, and just now all of a sudden we, the lucky fans, get to see them in full action on the biggest stage. And I think for me, that's been the greatest gift of this World Cup.
Let's get into this, Brandi C, because we are taping this within a couple of hours of the US team coming off a group stage in which, for the first time ever, the United States failed to win 2 or more group games at a World Cup. The 0-0 draw against Portugal. We were just a post width away from being eliminated, which is hard to say, almost unimaginable to conceive, but we almost live that dark reality. How have you understood what we've witnessed? How have you explained it to yourself?
Well, honestly, I've been explaining it to people for probably a decade or more, which is women's football has always been around. It just hasn't been seen. It hasn't been consumed because opportunities just haven't been presented. We now have places for women to play on the regular. Now, we're still fighting for pay equity. We're still fighting for those types of things, but the fact that they now have places to go and play outside of where it is that they're from has changed the game enormously. And it is a gift, because now we're finding these players who will be household names going forward.
Are you surprised, or does it feel like the past couple of World Cups there's been a narrative of the rest of the world catching up with us and our Title IX propelled advantage, and now it appears that they may have done? Is it more a case of, hello, darkness, we've been expecting you, but honestly outrunning you for a long time?
I think there's a lot of variables in this equation. And I think part of what we're experiencing, again, is just opportunity. They aren't catching up. They have always been here. We just haven't seen them. And now we have an opportunity to see them at midnight and 3 a.m. and all the times that I've been getting up. I've been in this game for 5 decades, and I've been for 4 decades talking about how valuable this collection, this pool, this well of resources that is called women's soccer. They're intelligent, they are talented, they're powerful, they have skills, and they are giving of themselves in these moments. And so I honestly believe women's soccer has this, we're on this upward trajectory, but it's starting its meteoric rise, and it's going to just take off in a way that it never has had an opportunity to.
And the way you're framing it, I think, is right, because we've always thought, in terms of the catching up, that it would be the other big European powers who would close the gap. You know, the teams that have the domestic leagues of real might themselves, the Germanys, the Englands, the Spains, the Frances. But this World Cup, it's been the Jamaicas, the Haitis, Portugals, Colombias who have truly thrilled. And the tactical prowess, the level of coaching around the world has exploded. When you project that forward, these World Cups, they're going to be murderer's rows of talent and competition, right? A world away from say, 1991.
And I see it as I used to see men's football coming from like the street and the small communities where they live. That to me, I think is where we need to dig down to find out the reason why we're having the type of results we're having during this World Cup.
I mean, it does feel like there is a possibility that the way we've been doing things needs to be looked at from a very high level in a very strategic and thoughtful way. Let's understand that knockout football at this World Cup is a different creature. And you've played it, Brandi. You played and you've won through the gauntlet of knockout World Cup football. What is it that makes knockout rounds of World Cups so truly different from the group stages emotionally?
We should have had more bite and we should have had more, I think, fierceness in this last match against Portugal. And I will say that this team has something on within the target that everybody is trying to aim at right now, which is nobody's ever won 3 in a row. So this is an uncharted territory, and the burden of that is on these players, whether they ask for it or not. And so that is a variable that has never existed before. But I'm hoping in the next 4 days that we can deconstruct what happened, reconstruct a plan that will suit the players that we have available, and that we can go forward. And we use that, again, almighty USA mentality to will ourselves into a position to win.
Oh, amen. That was beautifully said. But I do want to take a step back to those more joyful, more naive days. July 10th, 1999. Seen a 90,000 plus sellout crowd at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena to watch your US women's national team, Brandi, take on China in the World Cup final. It's 0-0 after 90 minutes, still scoreless. One kick to win a World Cup for your nation. Take us back to that moment. Score is 4-4. China had failed to convert their third penalty. Shout out to the incredible Brianna Scurry for the save of a lifetime. You were the fifth kicker. The one who could clinch it all. And you've said that your one thought was just not to look at the goalkeeper, because earlier in the year you played China, you'd taken a penalty and the goalkeeper had gotten in your head before the kick. You missed, the US lost the game. So that long agonising walk from the halfway line to the penalty spot after 120 minutes of hot, punishing football, July heat, 40 yards must have felt like an ultra marathon. Take me through what thoughts went through your head on that walk, that march of doom to the spot?
It's amazing how 90,000 plus people could be so quiet. It was really calm, to be honest with you. I think, I had a moment with Tony DeCicco.
The coach.
You know, he had come up to me just before going out to the middle, and he said, "You're going to take a penalty." And I said, "Yep." Mia Hamm did not want to take a penalty kick, by the way, if you've ever asked her. And Tony said, "I don't care. You have to take one. You're like the world's leading goal scorer. You must step up." So, it wasn't always comfortable for everybody. But when Tony came over and said, "You're going to take a kick," I said, "Yep." And he says, "Well, you're going to take it with your left foot." And then he kind of like the Roadrunner just ran away and dust was behind him.
We should add for dear listeners, Brandi Chastain was a right-footed player.
Yeah, honestly, I'm a two-footed player, but I'd never taken a penalty with my left foot in a game ever in my life.
You are amazing, Brandi. So you weren't like, "What the hell, Tony? Let's talk about this." You were just like, "Yes, chef."
Yep, yes, chef. Exactly. Heard.
And then the kick itself, which, did you know what you were doing on this allegedly weaker left foot? Did you have a plan? Jurgen Klinsmann always used to say, if you don't know where you're hitting the penalty, the goalkeeper has no chance of knowing either, because you rocketed it right to the top corner. Was that the plan?
The plan was just to hit it as well as I could, and force her to make a save. So that kick was a winner, but not not a loser. So perhaps that gave me the confidence to be bold.
You are amazing, and bold it was. Harry Kane, take notes. Brandi, oh my lord, honestly still gives me goosebumps every time I see it. And then we all know exactly what happened next. The picture heard round the world, perhaps the most iconic photograph in women's sports history. You whipped off your shirt, you dropped to your knees, arms raised to the sky as your teammates caught up, sprinted all around you. Talk to me about that moment. What emotions were you experiencing inside?
It was a tornado of emotions. This game was a perfect example of like competition at its utmost, and China never broke, and we never gave in, and it was just magical, and the crowd was phenomenal. Just it was fortunate for myself that it was me, but honestly, that moment belonged to everybody.
Did, and it was an enormous
Mm.
cacophony, an enormous spotlight, an enormous statement grabbing moment. Anyone that lived through it, young listeners who now take the profile of women's sports, the growing profile still has so much more room to grow, but it's definitely a surging force in our sporting lives, in our cultural lives. This was a moment, it was like a switch being flicked. Really, the spotlight was being turned on.
Mhm.
It was being turned on both by the winning, it was turned on by your celebration. It gave, just in those days, Sports Centre was just an enormous muscle. Everybody watched, and this played in such heavy rotation. American joy, American glory, American celebration fuse. There was also an element, Brandi, in that moment, it felt like for you guys that you just made it. Like it felt like inevitable in that moment, right? That a league had to be created,
Yeah.
that investment had to come in, that you guys had just made a future for yourselves and for everyone that would follow. And it didn't turn out to be that way, right? It feels like it did now, but the spotlight flicked off very, very quickly afterwards.
Again, women's soccer in the 90s, though we had been successful, hadn't quite woven itself into the fabric of the sports conversations. But what it did do, and I believe is again to your question earlier, talking about why is this World Cup so great? And why are there so many young women that are showing up for the first time in the World Cup and being so talented? This picture and this 99 World Cup impacted them because it forced FIFA to talk about women's football. It forced them to put pressure on federations, and so the future of women's soccer could survive and then thrive.
As the NWSL continues to grow, we get to mention the new role that you've assumed. Honestly, Brandi Chastain, I'm so bloody thrilled for you. Few people deserve it more. You're now the founding co-owner of Bay FC, the newly established Bay Area NWSL expansion team. They'll play home games in your hometown of San Jose, California, starting in March 2024. Brandi, tell us how you came to be involved in this origin story of Bay FC and what your visions, what your dreams are for women's football in that. Frankly, we love going to the Bay Area. It is proper football mad. It is an area which has cried out for this for the longest time.
Well, my history is long and deep, Raj. I was a NASL ticket holder since I was 9 years old, and George Best became my beacon of light to football because he played for the San Jose Earthquakes. And when I saw him, I thought, I want to do that. But what I'm so proud of and excited for is that we want to build a brand that is a global brand, a brand that when you walk around, no matter if you're in Zurich to London to Orlando to Sydney, you're going to see this B and you're going to know what it stands for. And it stands for more than just what's happening on the pitch. It's a culture, it's a way of life, and we have probably more than 150 languages that are spoken here. So we're going to unite these communities into an environment that they understand belongs to them.
Oh, I'm reading between the lines a bit too much here and think that you're communicating to me hashtag bring Naomi Gurma home. When I say, by the way, March 2024 kickoff, does that feel calmly far away? Lots of time to get to that, or do you feel quite suddenly nauseous? You're like, oh my God, that feels like tomorrow.
A little bit of both, Raj, a little bit of both. And, Naomi Gurma went to the same high school as my parents. So I feel like I've known Naomi for a long time. She played in the club that I coached in. And so I am very happy for her, whether she comes here or not.
But by the way, I did think of Naomi when you talked about the Bay Area fabric and just how diverse the love of football is there. Someone who grew up playing just on those hot weekend afternoons with the Ethiopian community and pickup games that they used to play in the park. I just love that pathway from there to the pro game over and over and over with your team there in the Bay Area. We asked listeners for questions. We've got a ton of them. Awesome. We're going to run through them quickly. Let's get in there. Question from a listener, Cassie in Cleveland, Ohio. Raise my Bud Light to you, Cassie. As someone who's been there and taken a penalty in the most high-pressure, high-stakes situation imaginable, who on the current US Women's National Team would you choose to take one kick to win the United States World Cup?
3 pop into my head. Megan Rapinoe obviously is somebody who has a great amount of experience, but also kind of the moxie. I'd also say Lindsay Horan. I think she has that kind of calm, composed, like I don't give a, you saw her score that goal against the Dutch, and she's fierce, right? She's fierce. And then I think to our native San Josean, Naomi Gurma, because she's an intellect. She would approach it in a way that is not emotional. It's just like matter of fact, and go up there and take it. So those 3, I think, would be quite sufficient.
And the third one, just another morsel of evidence that there is a campaign. Hashtag bring Naomi Gurma home. I love it. Next question at Aussie25. Which current US Women's National Team player would you have liked to have played with, and why the most?
Julie Ertz is another one. Obviously, I do have a little bias. I will say straight up, she went to Santa Clara University, and I love her tenacity and her respect for the hard work that goes into the game, but also the due diligence that it takes to be great. To be honest with you, I'm going to say all of them because I loved being on the national team. Here's a nice picture I have that was on my desk. This is from 2003. Every single one of those players are just fantastic, and I would love to play with any single one of them.
You got this lunchbox?
Yeah, I do. I have that.
Oh. Where's yours?
It's in my kitchen. I have it. My son used to carry it to school for his lunches. That's awesome. It is awesome.
That's just such a humble brag. My mum made these sandwiches and she's on the front of the lunchbox because she's a World Cup winner. God, that is beautiful. God, it does feel like yesterday in every regard, Brandi Chastain. Final question for you. Can we get a prediction? Oh, put us out of our misery. How will it go Sunday? Spoiler alert it for us. USA, Sweden. Tell us what you think. Brandi Chastain.
Well, we know what Sweden does well. We know that they're like us, similar in the free kicks and corner kicks. They've scored quite a few of them in this World Cup, so we have to be ready for that. I'm really looking forward to Vlatko's decision on what the lineup will be. Where will we put Julie Ertz? Who's going to be in the center back role? And who will be stepping in to play in the spot of Rose Lavelle? If we can do what I think we're going to do, which is to calm down, value the ball, open up the space, and start possessing a little bit more in that first phase, we can get the players behind Sweden, which is not going to be easy, but I feel like we're going to dig down deep and it's going to be a squeaker, or we're going to squeak by, but it's not going to be easy.
Brandi Chastain, I want to finish by raising my Bud Light in toast to you. You are such an icon. I admire so much the tenacity and wonder with which you played, adore just as much how you've risen to support and influence so many who've come after you selflessly in your second career, to Bay FC, can't wait to come and watch a game with you and witness all that there is to come. Big love. Thank you.
Raj, love you. Thank you.
Courage. Listen to the full version of this podcast and all our podcasts wherever you get your pods. But first, subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos. And courage.